Hey guys, thanks for returning and welcome to a new video. This video is about the 10 words of stack and tilt, an overview of the 10 words. And this is something that I want you to take because we've covered the basics of stack and tilt. We've covered that we need to hit the ball first, we need to hit the ground second, we need to create good power, and we need to control the direction. But taking that as a basic requirement to play good golf, we're now going to look at a simple template that'll help improve your game to meet those fundamentals. So let's start. What are the words? We've got weight forward, we've got the hands in, we've got the shoulder down, we've got the arms straight, and we've got tuck the hips. That's 3 words, I know, we're cheating a little bit. But if we say tuck hips as 2 words, there you've got 10 words. So before I go into analysing my swing or videos of my students, I want to put these words into a very simplified version. So weight forward, what are we talking about? Well, the better players tend to demonstrate the weight moves to the target more than a poorer player. So I'm not saying that every golfer sways their hips forever towards the target, but definitely the better players tend to do it more than the poorer golfers. Golfers that I see day to day tend to exhibit their weight moving backwards more rather than moving forwards more. So weight forward. And weight forward itself, it doesn't mean that it needs to be all of the weight forward. There's different points and different places when the weight moves forward. But this might apply to your golf swing at the address position, at the top of the backswing. It might apply at impact or beyond impact. So we can use these 2 words at various places in the golf swing to produce a better swing for you, which ultimately hits the ball first better or hits the ball longer. Then we talk about the hands in. Now the hands in, multiple meanings to this. We look at the better players who tend to take hands in around the body, but this could also be hands in the follow-through, and not many people think about this. But not only are we trying to produce a draw shot, but for some golfers we need to take off the excess draw. Sometimes a golfer draws the ball too much. So we could also look at the finish position where the hands go back in around the body, tracing the arc that's on the ground that we present from the angle of the golf club at the address position. Shoulder down, you may have heard the term everybody tilts, and this is something that undeniably the better players do more than the poorer players. Quite often we see golfers that can't keep their inclination to the ground, that forward bend or staying in posture as some golf coaches like to call it, but they don't manage to keep that angle the same, and they get to the top and they start to raise their head, and that causes them to top the ball, shank the ball, many problems that can occur from the raising of the head. If we use the shoulder to go down enough, that's going to start to help create more power to help us hit the ball first, to help us stabilize the head movement. So shoulder down, left shoulder going down more, tends to be something exhibited by better players, but the shoulder also goes down in the downswing. The poorest players tend to look at impact with a least shoulder tilt. We start to see better golfers, they tend to have the right shoulder lower and the left shoulder higher. So shoulder down, it doesn't just apply to the backswing, it can apply in many parts of the golf swing. Then we go on to arms straight, one that is quite often misunderstood, and this is to do with the left arm in the backswing. For example, the left arm bending could be exhibited by the poorer players. Now the left arm will tend to have some bend as it goes back, but the better players tend to keep it straighter for longer, or they extend it more. So arm straight. Now this also can apply to the right arm. Now the right arm does begin flexed and it starts to flex even more, but the poorer golfers may overflex that. So the feeling that they're keeping the right arm straighter for longer can help them to produce a better golf shot as well. Now then we start to look in the downswing, and the right arm actually starts to straighten into the downswing just beyond impact. And again, poorer players may not do that as well. Sometimes people will say, what about Koepka? And Koepka may come into impact with the arms bent, but post impact the arms would be straight. So again, arm straight is just 2 words that can apply in so many different positions in the golf swing. Even when we're doing these drill shots, we can start to work on the arm straight in the finish. But again, something that we can apply where you need it to help you hit that better golf shot. And tuck in the hips, 3 words I know, but tuck in the hips, better players tend to have the hips pushed forward the most and the chest up, and this would be the act of extension from the ankle to the knees, to the pelvis, to the thorax, to the neck, all extending more. The poorer players we tend to see tend to have the hips down the most. Now also, tuck in the hips can in some way apply to the backswing too, as we see some golfers who keep the belt buckle pointing down, and if we push the hips up a little bit more and extend that pelvis in the backswing, it can give us a little bit more range of movement to allow us to turn the shoulders more and extend the chest more in the backswing to create more power. So again, We've got 10, 11 words in there, and from them 10, 11 words we can change so many parts of the golf swing. It's quite incredible really that, okay, it may be a simple system, but the level of detail that's available to a golfer in that is a lot. So I want to just give a very quick example before I move on. How do I use part of this system in my own game? Well, one for me is when I have a long break away from golf, I tend to stay in flex too long, my knees bend too much, so tuck in the hips is something that I'd apply into my game. That normally is the start of me getting back into golf and trying to work on that taller finish, extended legs, tuck in the hips. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, just very simply, going to go in, have a look at a few different golf swings, a couple of mine, some good and bad examples of this, and then I'm going to look at a couple of students' golf swings as well and show you the difference that we can use this system to apply it to help them play better golf. Okay guys, so two swings here. The one on the left, I'm just in casual clothing just to kind of represent the before swing, the one on the right back into a little bit of golf gear, and this would be the after swing as well. So really I want to have a look at these and see how do we apply that system and how do we use these words. So first of all, it's really important to know what the ball flight is. Am I a golfer who's hitting a draw or fade? Am I doing that draw, or am I hitting that fade shot because it's a path problem or a club face problem or a contact problem? So all of these start to come into my decision making. But when we look at these two swings, let's say the golfer on the left is not drawing the ball enough and the golfer on the right is making the change to help him hit the draw shot. So we go straight into the golfer on the left, and if I start to draw just a couple of pieces in here, first thing I'm going to do is just draw a line on the shaft. And this is just going to represent really where the hands are moving in the early part of the golf swing. Then I'm going to draw a line just down from the front edge of the hand. And if we start to look at the first part of the system, it'd be hands in. And typically the golfer that doesn't take the hands in the most early in the golf swing would be more prone to creating that fade shot. So if we look at this early part of the backswing, we'll start to see how golfer on the left doesn't take the hands in so much. Golfer on the right starts to take the hands in nearer to that line in the start of the backswing. So this is where we could start to apply this system of golf, and we're talking about the hands going in more to allow us to hit more of a draw shot. So all things being equal, the golfer on the right is going to create the most curve to the left. The golfer on the left is going to create the most curve to the right. It's just one way we'd look at it. If you have a model, any deviations from the model have an expected outcome. So all other things being equal, if the golfer made this change, the golfer on the right would be more prone to a draw shot. Now we just carry on a little bit more and we can see how much the hands have gone in again. So the golfer on the right would have the hands going through the bicep more. That'd be creating the bigger draw shot. The golfer on the left would have the hands going in less. So if we're looking at the hands in part of the golf swing, you can already see how this has been applied from this view to create a change in the ball flight. Guys, on to the next two words. Shoulder down. Everybody tilt. So what is shoulder down? What is its purpose and how can you practice it? Well, you know the drill where you put your head on the wall and you work on making the shoulder go down. Why do you do that? Well, it keeps your head stable and teaches you how to tilt and what you need to move in your body to make tilting a little bit easier. But what I've done on this video here, I've taken a point on the center of the hips and a point on the center of the shoulders, and what I'll do now is draw a line roughly 90 degrees to that. And I'm going to do that on both videos. So the golfer on the left would be the poorest golfer. Also put a mark somewhere around the top of the head. Now if the golfer on the way back doesn't get the left shoulder to go down at the same rate that he's turning and extending. So the idea is as the shoulder goes down, we turn and extend. If the shoulder goes down too much, we might lower the head. If the shoulder doesn't go down quick enough, the head would raise. So if we start to look at golfer on the right, we start to see how the head's lifting. Just a little bit, but enough to influence that ball flight. And as we get to the top, if we lose the tilt too much, we're going to raise the head the most. So what we're trying to do is the left shoulder's going down to keep us in an inclination to the ground, that angle to the ground. If we see halfway back, let me just do this one more time, we go to the left arm parallel to the ground, and we go to the left arm parallel to the ground here, you can see the difference in how that left shoulder is down more. And I've exaggerated a little bit for the visual here, and it's saying my tilt's a little bit excessive, but the more forward bend you have at address, the more you are to tilt. But what we're trying to do is that 45 degree that I would bend forward at the beginning, I'm replacing that with left tilt. So I'm a 48 degrees tilted there, 45 at the beginning, 48 here. I've replaced that forward bend by left tilt. Two words, shoulder down. Left shoulder going down helps us to keep the head stable, helps us to hit the ball first, ground second. So if I would take my student here, Jong, and we start to have a look at her golf swing and how it's evolved over time. When we look at how it looked in November, we'd see this move off of the ball. That'd be the very early move. And she'd been taught that she needed to shift her weight over to the right foot to hit the ball well. But she just felt that she never progressed and she never hit the ball well enough, always hitting the ground behind the ball. So then we look at the transition part and we can see how these two words, weight forward, coming from the knee, getting the knee outside of the ankle and getting the hips forward, really helped to improve that ball striking. So this was one of our exaggeration drills that we did, and we'd start to get that left knee outside of the left ankle. So it'd be a real key move in trying to hit the ball first, ground second. Whereas before, we found that Jeong would really stay on that back foot and hit the ground behind the ball. And then when we take that into impact, now we can see how much that hip has moved towards the target. So the hip, compared to its original position, has shifted significantly towards the target versus the before swing in there. So weight forward, it's going to help you hit the ball first, ground second. Now we'd go into the next two words, arms straight. How can we keep the arms straighter for longer? And what would it look like? So the poorer players, you don't need to keep the arms straight, but the poorer players that tend to have these arms that flex the most as opposed to arms that are straighter in the post swing. So arms straight is a very good feeling, and it can be applied in many different positions, but arm straight, the right arm after impact. And I did mention earlier, what if we look at Koepka? So if we were to look at Koepka, an old swing of Koepka here, we start to see as he comes into impact, the right arm is flexed, the left arm is flexed. But after impact, the right arm now is starting to straighten. So that application of arms straight can be applied to the golfer who would keep the arms flexed the longest. So now we go on to the next one, tuck the hips, push the hips forward. And I don't want to show you an extreme example, I just want to show you a golfer at the same point in the golf swing here, but with subtle changes. So here we've got the belt buckle just raised that little bit more, but you start to see it because the right leg is just that little bit straighter. And that's all it can take, just a little bit of that right leg straightening. Then we start to look down at the right foot, whereas the right foot would be back before. So we'd have the pelvis flexed more, the weight back more. Now we've got the pelvis pushed up more, and it's starting to lift that heel away from being backwards. It's a combination of the weight transfer and the extending of the legs. But I've got plenty of bad examples of golfers doing this poorly, but it's good to see a golfer doing it well and how a little change can have a huge impact.